I'm going to cover one of the most controversial topics in real estate in Ontario right now, and that is the opening up or the swapping of Greenbelt land for development of housing. This was proposed as a solution for our housing issue that we currently have in the GTA in particular. I'll give you my thoughts as to why I don't think this is going to work. And more importantly, I'll give you my opinion on what I see my own clients doing, other investors, in terms of how they're speculating on the green belt based on precedent that the government has set and how they plan on potentially making money. It's opinion only, but you're going to want to stick around because there are some very logical and rational arguments to be made in terms of why more green belt could be opened up in the future. My name is Vas, and I'm a chartered professional accountant by training. However, I am a full-time real estate broker right here in the city of Toronto, and I help families and investors navigate through the chaos that we call the real estate market. I found this infographic fairly interesting. It does a good job of showing us the cost of suburban sprawl. To recap what the Greenbelt is, in Ontario, the Greenbelt, it's 2 million acres of protected land. It provides clean air, fresh water, climate resilience, and a reliable food source to help Ontario thrive. It also acts as a land locking mechanism where developments can't just sprawl and they can't just build anywhere they want. This was established roughly 20 years ago, and it's been up for debate multiple times in terms of developers pushing to try to get it opened up for development and offering it and proposing it as solution to our housing issue. Unfortunately, in my opinion, this is effectively the low-hanging fruit toward arguing that building on the green belt is going to solve our housing problem. Meanwhile, in the GTA and in areas where we can actually build housing, we have issues with NIMBYs or not in my backyard, where we have so many developments or proposed developments that basically get chopped up because they're just unaffordable to build because of different restrictions, angular planes, and everything else. Then what ends up happening is, well, we can't build in the city even though we have the land. It just gets pushed out, and there's pressure being put on the green belt, as if that's going to solve our problems. So first, let's start with an overview of the Greenbelt map as it stands right now. This link will be in the description below. So currently this is in blue. It's showing us where the existing Greenbelt is. The reason I'm showing you this now is because I'm going to look at this, I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to show you the proposed sites for development from the existing Greenbelt, and then we're going to come back here and I'm going to show you why, when you look high level, where they're opening up some of the sites makes sense. And when I say makes sense, it makes sense because it's the low-hanging fruit. And I'm also going to tell you why I think it's going to set precedent for the future and future sites. As you'll see right here, the borders of the Greenbelt are right around the edges of all the municipalities and all the suburbs, except right here in Pickering, we'll have this sliver here that's gone down to Lake Ontario, and then a little bit more in Whitby, and then it just kind of finishes off here in Clarington. Now, this is the file that was released from the government in terms of the proposed lands that are going to be up for development if they meet the criteria. And I'm not going to take you through the entire PDF file, but it effectively goes through all the different areas in Newmarket, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, etc. The one I want to bring your attention to is the one here in Pickering. And the reason this one is important is because of how big it is. If you look, it goes all the way from 407 all the way down to Finch Avenue, which is a substantial parcel. And as you can see, it's fairly big. Now, why is this important? Well, if we come back and take a look at this graph that this map I was showing you, as you can see, for the most part, the middle of the GTA is fairly clear, except right here. And guess what? This is the exact same parcel I just showed you that's going to be opened up. Why does it make the most sense to me? Well, look at the proximity to downtown Toronto. It's the closest piece of Greenbelt that's close to the city of Toronto. It's effectively on the border of the city of Toronto, Scarborough, as well as Markham. Both very desirable places. And it's in West Pickering. Mind you, Durham and Pickering, for the last little bit, have been getting a ton of infrastructure money. A lot of development has gone in there. So opening this up financially makes the most amount of sense for dollars and for profit. Whether or not it's the right move, I'm not debating that because, again, like I said, I don't think opening up the Greenbelt is solving our problems. But if you think about it financially, it makes the most amount of sense to open it up right here. One key thing to remember is that it wasn't that long ago. I think 2016 is when the 407 extension had finished. So infrastructure dollars have already been going out east for a long time. They extended the 407, and I think part of that is because land on the east side of the GTA was generally cheaper than the west. So effectively, it was the last part within the GTA that was cheaper to develop. So going west was expensive, going north was extremely expensive, then going east kind of provided this opportunity. So the 407 was extended, and then a bunch of money went in there. And then you can see why there would be a lot of pressure to open up Greenbelt land right there. Let's switch gears for a minute. The reason I don't agree with opening up the Greenbelt is because if you look at the Metrolinx map, there's still a ton of opportunity for housing to be built along transit corridors. And effectively, in my opinion anyway, to solve the housing crisis that we have to build up around transit because our infrastructure is already stretched and maxed out. I mean, the running joke is if you want to get anywhere within Toronto, it's at least a minimum 1 hour. We know at the Golden Mile, so that would be right here, this part of the map, we know there's a massive proposal for a bunch of high rises to be built. Along Danforth, there's a massive complex to be built there again with mixed use and high rise residential. I know a lot of investors have also been looking to do assembly here in the West End where there's ample land to develop. But the thing is, a lot of these things are going to be tied up in NIMBYism. So effectively all the neighbors in the surrounding areas that don't want high rises, they're going to be fighting it tooth and nail, and a lot of times they win. Just like building up high rises along Yonge Street has been difficult. That's why you'll see buildings with angular planes and all these different things. So the angular planes are, for example, because people living in the area don't want shadows being casted on their properties. If nobody is willing to negotiate, then we'll have to come up with these compromise solutions where, number one, building extremely expensive housing like angular plane condos, because that adds to the cost of building instead of building a high rise. So number one, we're creating more expensive housing. We're not creating the housing that people want, pushing people and developers to try and go at these Greenbelt lands to develop. I actually don't know what the solution is. I think this is a very complicated topic, but I think the first thing that needs to be done is to explore where and how to build within the city of Toronto where we already have the available land, while dealing with the NIMBYism that's happening throughout. I think that is step number one before we start attacking the Greenbelt. In my opinion, the solution for the housing problem that we do have starts with this map. We have to build along existing transit corridors. Anything else to me is wasted opportunity. That being said, my opinion is irrelevant, and I think the government is going to continue doing things that are probably not going to mimic what I just said, and they're going to continue putting pressures and sprawling the GTA. So what does that mean for us as people who live here, investors, and other people in real estate? Well, let's take a look. So we just covered the state of affairs right now with the Greenbelt, why I don't think it's the right thing to do, or at least I feel that just doing it by itself without addressing the more core issue of not being able to build along existing infrastructure, there's obviously a missed opportunity here. But having said all of that, now let's talk about, this is more opinion at this point, and I'll show you what I see from my own investor clients who have acted on some of this news in the past, and what I'm seeing from people with a lot more money in terms of how they're thinking about the Greenbelt and the futures. Back to our trusty map right here. As we know, so this is the piece that's being given up right now to from the Greenbelt for development in the future. As you will see right here, this part is not part of the Greenbelt. This was an exception. And we have a proposal for the Bradford Bypass that's going to go in here. So assuming that this Bradford Bypass is actually approved, I already know a lot of people in York region who are starting to park money or try to basically rotate out of different assets and start parking money along the 404 and closer to this Bradford Bypass that's apparently going to happen. Whether or not it happens, I don't know. But people are acting on it. We've also had infrastructure money put in at the Bloomington GO train station right down here. And if you've been around there, it's just a bunch of forest with nothing around it. Who is that GO train station built for? I mean, if I had to guess, eventually there's plans to add more density in that area, but that area is pretty much right around the Greenbelt. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it seems to me that the Greenbelt pressure, based on precedent from what happened now, is going to probably go up the 404. And that's where people with money are starting to speculate and starting to park their own money. Now, the last map I want to bring your attention to is the urban boundary map for York region, mostly to support my point why I think pressure along the 404 corridor is going to continue mounting up into the next decade and into the future. So it's no secret that investors in the past have bought real estate or property or vacant land near the urban boundaries of different municipalities. What ends up happening is these urban boundaries are usually under a lot of pressure to get expanded. The second it gets expanded and your property falls into the newly expanded area, immediately you make profit because your lot or your value, the value of your land has just gone up significantly because it can be developed. So there's a lot of overlap right now in terms of where infrastructure dollars are going, how it relates to the Greenbelt and along this 404 corridor, because the infrastructure already exist and because they're planning on adding additional infrastructure. At that point, what do? Most likely, there's going to be again a pressure to expand these urban boundaries. And this is where I think people, or not I think, I've seen people start parking their money, speculating potentially that in the next 10 to 20 years, they're going to make money from the expansion of this urban boundary. As you can tell, this is a very complicated issue. Personally, I don't know what the answer is. Again, I don't feel very good about opening up the Greenbelt to just do more cookie cutter subdivisions when we haven't even taken advantage of what's available within the city of Toronto because of politics. That being said, my opinion here is completely irrelevant. What I do pay attention to is what the government is doing. So, government precedent is the only thing that really matters, because if they're doing this now, potentially more Greenbelt will be given up in the future. So we have to act accordingly and manage our expectations the exact same way. Don't tell me what you're going to do, show me what you're going to do. And the government is actually showing us what they're going to do. We're going to follow the money. People with money are betting on the fact that more and more Greenbelt is going to be given up in the future. At the end of the day, this is all speculation, but I thought I would just give you my thoughts in terms of what I'm seeing and why I think the way I do think. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, because it gives me the feedback I need that this is something you value. And then I'm going to bring you more content like this. This is the type of stuff I kind of wish I saw on YouTube, but I never did. If you have any questions, feel free to text or email me. I love chatting real estate, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.